Good evening. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us to the end. Honorable Knowledge Seeker, today I am your host for the evening. My name is Badhun Dash. I am from Bangladesh. Dear Knowledge Seeker, I am proud to be associated with IGP. IGP is the Social and ISO Certified International Educational and Training Institute. In last 3 years, we already served 35 million plus knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 450 plus professional and 2,500 plus organizations. In Institute of Global Professional, IGP is a training faculty for skill development which was founded in 2020 and is generating competent candidates to meet demand in the global labor market by providing professional qualification. The Institute of Global Professional is an educational institute that provides social work globally recognized and reputable. We serve student and community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase one skill just by offering formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate professional generation all over the world. We distribute our services locally, nationally, internationally to student job seeker, job holder, and also for learner to respective campus location and distance learning platform. We are an occupational and dependable institute. IGP is one of the famous online institutes from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business product, it's a part of our human rights. Based on our vision, we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinars, seminar courses, award, quiz competition, mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, we are also trying to offer more than 100 premium services for free, like create own portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and wall knowledge platform for gathering general knowledge which can update all day. Kids learning game, website free course, convert sites, and many more. We help empower to learn to meet their expectation and dream and become highly skilled people. We implement several training program, webinar, and offline online courses for youth and learner by professional trainer, speaker, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted by globally renowned professionals to develop all kinds of youth and to promote the education of their abilities and personalities. Spreading knowledge is crucial for the Institute of Global Professionals. We believe that knowledge is love and light and vision. So we try to understand the needs of today's generation and serve them with good research and practice method. We must have a genuine concern for the learner we represent. More diversity, growth, and innovation are required to lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity. IGP members are committed to offering effective best quality service and continual improvement so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill level and value. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,592 webinars successfully. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,592 webinars successfully. Dear IGP speaker, participant, and well-wisher, at this moment, this is a very important message for you all. We change and design our website, www.eduigp.com. On this website, we have surprise for everyone. Hope you will be benefited. We already launched our new website where you can find all our previous activities together with lots of new features. But one strong point is that without an account or login, you cannot enjoy our services. So create your account for one with profile information. Note that with profile information, you will enjoy all features. With mismatched data, you cannot do anything here. From now on, you have to participate in live quiz competition on our website. We replace Slido. You have to join directly on our website. Now you can check all of our previous webinars with verified e-certificate. Now it's easier and time-oriented because after the session, we will not provide you any code for certification. You have to take part in one exam. After that, if you pass, you will receive your certificate, otherwise not. But you can take part in an exam unlimited till you pass. If you are an IGP speaker, you can download your all previous certificate, speakership certificate. If you are a host of IGP, then you can download your certificate of gratitude. If you are an online live quiz competition winner, then you can download your certificate of participation. If you are selected for a lifetime membership, then you can download a certificate of lifetime membership easily. Besides this, if you participate in any award function which organized combined support with IGP, then you can download that also. You can instantly prepare and download 18 types of instant certificate from our website within a minute. Certificate of Global Professional Membership, Certificate of Global Influencer during the pandemic, Certificate of Active Knowledge Seeker, Certificate of Social Activities during the pandemic, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeking Campaign 2020, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeking Campaign 2021, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeking Campaign 2022, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 1, Authentic Assessment in Teaching Learning, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 2, Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 3, Digital Classroom Engagement Tools, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 4, The New Trend in Education, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 5, Upskilling Organization Leadership and Managerial Skills, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 6, Trend and Innovation in Mathematics Education, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 7, Research Comprehension Approach Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 8, Art in Teaching Special Program in the Art, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 9, 21st Century Tool in Mathematics, Certificate of IGP Corporate Ambassador, Certificate of IGP Campus Ambassador, which you can find, prepare and download within a minute. From now on, you can participate in 1000 plus international level quiz with verified e-certificate. Teaching tips for teacher, health tips for parents, health tips for teens, gamification tools for teacher. You can join IGPT alumni. You can check out our 50 plus student services website for free and many more. Dear IGP well-wisher, we promised previously, but lack of technical issue, we are late sending you on time. This is a great opportunity to collect your previous conditions. We solve all issues for our website. Now you can enroll, reset password, everything. You can check use dashboard for all web details. It's a cordial request to you check all button and pages on our website. Surely I can say you will be benefited. Thank you, but note that without an account or logged in, you cannot enjoy our services. At present, we are going to start our 1593 webinar, which name is Communication Skills. And today our speaker's name is Dr. Atul Palit. He is from India. Before I hand over the stage to our speaker, sir, I want to share a very little bit about him. Professor of English at MIT ADD University, Director at MIT School of Holistic Development, Pune, Honorary Vice President at ILTIA Pune chapter. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. You are audible. So the stage is yours. You can start your presentation now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that warm welcome and kind introduction and this wonderful opportunity to be here. And it's been my pleasure always to get associated with IGP team and especially Professor Kaushik. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So let me directly get into my presentation. The topic that we are going to discuss or ponder over today is the art of communication skills. And when we talk about communication skills, I'm not going to throw light on general communication that we do on day-to-day basis, but business communication, that is formal way of communicating with others for job or business purposes. Now, it is said that one may have brilliant ideas, but what is the use of those ideas if that person is not able to talk about them, if he or she is not able to put them across the table? And that is where the role of communication plays very crucial role. So even if we lose everything that we have today, but if we have this power of communication, we can be so confident that we can regain everything that we lost just with this power of communication. But what is it that holds many of us, or even when we deal with our students, what is it that holds them back? What has to a large extent effect on their success? And when we analyze this, we understand that it is their soft skills, because only hard skills or technical skills can make someone eligible for an interview, but it is soft skills which can help anyone get a good job and also keep it and always climb the ladder of success as one enters or moves from college to corporate, because only technical skills which are absolutely a must are not going to help, because they may only help you get a good job. But if you wish to always succeed in whatever field that you are into, the art of communication can always make you an outstanding person, and you can always survive in this cutthroat competition, because communication, or soft skills for that matter, have become like passport to success. Now, therefore, students nowadays not only possess their basic degrees or qualification, additionally, they nowadays go for computer skills, computer programming languages. But if someone is good at communication, along with having a professional degree and going for some computer based programming languages, if someone is able to communicate effectively, that is how he or she can always tip the balance. Now, here are some examples, the acronyms that you see on the screen. This is how our youth, our youngsters interact with each other, especially when they chat on, online. So all these acronyms stand for, something, and some of the acronyms might not be even familiar to us because we don't use them, but our youngsters use them in their day to day situations. Not only words or text, they also go ahead and use many symbols. And again, these symbols carry certain meanings. These emoticons that you see on the screen also mean something. This is how language has been changing, and language always keep on changing with the influence of technology. Because we can say, once upon a time when window was just a small square hole in a house, when application was something written on a piece of paper, when file was an important official document, when cut was done with a knife and paste with glue, when hard drive was a very hectic long road trip, when virus was flu, and mind you, apple and blackberry were only fruits. This is how language has always been influenced with the advancement in technology, and this is going to continue. So let us not get into the debate whether such use of acronyms or emoticons, is it creative use of language or exploitation of language. So language will keep on changing. With the invention of printing, language changed. With the invention of telephone, again language received newer forms and phrases and words. And similarly, with the invention of television, and now with the invention of computer or internet, language sees many such changes. And therefore, when we talk about communication, communication plays very crucial role, because it is the human connection and it becomes the key for not only personal but also professional success. And therefore communication is really very crucial. And as it is said that if you speak rude, you can't sell honey. If you speak rude, you can't sell honey. But if you speak sweet, you can even sell a chili. And that is how communication can help you not only build good relationships, but also bridge barriers and have good bonds with others, not only in your personal but also professional life. Now, when we talk about language, language is said to be a vehicle of communication, and this vehicle has got four wheels. And I have deliberately kept silence in the beginning because sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Then the second wheel is your non-verbal communication, and many a time non-verbal communication also plays very crucial role in communication. And then of course the two remaining wheels are speech, the way we speak and the way we write. So only having these four wheels for the vehicle of language is not going to help. When I drive a car, for example, or when I ride a bike, I need to follow traffic rules. Similarly, as a communicator, we need to have a good and a healthy blend of all these wills and follow the rules that you see on the screen. When I communicate, I must know the place where I'm going to communicate, how much time I need to communicate, the way in which I am going to communicate, whether I'm going to use a formal style, a frozen style, or an informal or an intimate style. So it depends on the way that I communicate. The amount of information that I'm going to share, it should not be too less, or it should not be too much information that I'm bombarding my audience with. And what is the occasion? According to the occasion, my way, my content, my style, everything might change. So when we follow all these rules and try to blend this with the four wheels that we need to have a good wheel alignment with, we can become an effective communicator. Now you are aware that this communication process, unlike the method of speaking, here we need minimum two people. One is a sender who encodes his ideas or thoughts or desires and communicates them using a specific medium. Now, the medium could be verbal, the medium could be written, or it could also be non-verbal through body language. When the receiver receives the message, the receiver has to decode it to comprehend and understand the meaning attached to that specific message. And when the receiver receives the message, decodes and understands it, the receiver is supposed to respond. And again, when the receiver responds, the receiver becomes a sender now, and the previous sender becomes a receiver. So this process complete cycle is very essential. But what happens in this exchange of ideas, sometimes there could be barriers, and these barriers pop up without our notice. And how do they, how does that happen? Let me demonstrate. If you are sitting, you can also perform this while sitting in a chair. For example, you can rotate your right foot clockwise, rotate your right foot clockwise, keep rotating your right foot clockwise, and while rotating your right foot clockwise, raise your right hand and draw 6 in English completely, not with the finger, with your complete hand. Perform both the actions together, and you will see that there is a mismatch. Either you start drawing 9 or you start rotating your foot anti-clockwise. So this is how barriers also pop up when we communicate. Here there was a miscommunication between the brain and two parts of your body, and that is how barriers pop up. So these barriers, when we talk about communication, could be psychological barriers, could be linguistic barriers. If I begin in some other language, for example, if I say Guten Abend, ich heiße Atul Patil, ich arbeite bei MIT, ich wohne in Pune, Maharashtra, India. And if I ask you the question, wie geht es Ihnen? So I'm using some other language, that is German. I'm not proficient in German, but I just know little bit of German. And if I communicate in German, and if you do not understand German, that becomes a linguistic barrier for you. So there could be linguistic barrier, there could be psychological barrier, there could be cultural barriers, and the list goes on. So as good communicator, whenever we send any message, we have to ensure that there are no barriers as such, and therefore we need to overcome these barriers to that extent. And therefore it is said communication is much more of an art than a science, and this can be developed with adequate practice. Because what we see, around 70% of mistakes at any workplace are usually because of either lack of communication or poor communication, or sometimes no communication at all. And that creates many gaps. And therefore, with the help of communication as a tool, we can bridge many such gaps. We can ensure that we have good bonds with others, and we can always build bridges connecting one culture with another, one country with another, one person with another, and the list can go on and on. That is how communication plays very important role. Now, Robert Frost said that the world can be divided into two groups. One, where you will find people who are not that knowledgeable, but they are very talkative, they are very extrovert, they will always keep on interacting. That is one group. The other group of people where they have brilliant ideas, excellent knowledge, but they don't know how to express it. So forget about express. When we want to express to impress, some people have difficulty in expressing their thoughts itself. So the next stage, they will find it more challenging when they want to express and impress other people. And therefore, success for us, no matter what field we are in, we in this new global and diverse workplace require not only communication skills but excellent communication skills, and that is how we can always spell success with the command over the soft skills and especially communication skills. Now, whenever we communicate, we need to put ourselves into the shoes of our listeners. This is very essential because everyone might not perceive everything in the same way. Look at this picture on the screen, for example, and if I ask you, what do you see in this picture? Some people might say, I see a young girl. Some might say that I see an old woman. And both of you are right. If you look at only that portion where there is an eye, you see a young girl, whereas if you look at the complete picture, you see an old woman because the face of that girl is only a nose of that old woman. So our perception will determine the meaning for us on how we comprehend what comes to us, whether it is a message, a spoken word, or a written word, or through non-verbal communication. And therefore, we as speakers need to keep this in mind that my perspective might not necessarily match with the perspective of my listener, and therefore we need to keep this in mind. For example, if I draw something here, for me it is 9, number 9, but for you it will be number 6 because you are looking at me from the other side. So that is why the speaker needs to keep himself into the shoes of the listener, and vice versa. If the listener also keeps himself or herself into the shoes of the speaker, it can be a mutual good coordination and communication can take place effectively. But if we don't do that, if we don't think from the other person's perspective, then there might be some problems or it might result in some miscommunication. So I'd like to pose a question and ask you, how much time do you think we actually spend communicating with others in our day-to-day situations? So we usually spend, of course, this will or may differ from one person to another, but on an average, we spend around 16% of time reading, 9% of time writing, and we spend more time listening and speaking. But unfortunately, in most of the educational systems, there has been more focus on the development of reading and writing, and listening and speaking always have taken back seats. Of course, now the thing, situations are changing everywhere, and we have an integrated approach where we combine all the skills in each and every lesson when a teacher imparts it. And therefore, we need to pay equal attention and we need to be good at all these four skills, whether it is listening, speaking, reading, or writing. Because only when I'm good at these four skills and additionally two or three systems of grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation, or in writing punctuation, I can communicate effectively. And therefore, communication is not only mastering any specific language, but with the help of communication, we can also achieve our goals, professional goals, especially. And therefore, when we talk about these four skills, the sequence is very crucial: listening, followed by speaking, followed by reading, and followed by writing. So, this sequence is very important because this is how we learned our mother tongue. I did not directly start writing in my mother tongue, or I didn't start reading. I started with listening. And remember, when we listen, our ears are open 24 by 7. But that doesn't mean we listen 24 by 7 to each and every sound or to each and every person around us. For example, if I don't wish to see something, physically I can close my eyes. If I don't wish to speak, physically I can close my mouth. But if I don't wish to listen to somebody or something, physically I cannot close my ears. I can do that mentally. And don't we do that in many sessions, many classes? Or some of you here, probably, if you are engaged in something else, you might not lend your ears completely to me because there might be some distraction around. And therefore, we need to understand that we need to develop this art of listening, because the inborn ability that we have is only hearing. So, listening is the first skill with the help of which we can build the foundation for mastering any language, followed by speaking after the baby is born. And in fact, many research studies have proved that listening begins even before birth. When the baby is in mother's womb, listening starts from that period. And then after the baby is born, it starts uttering certain sounds and slowly learns to pronounce words, and then starts constructing phrases, clauses, and ultimately sentences. And that is how the baby starts speaking. And here exposure plays very crucial role, the language spoken around the child. After the baby goes to a school, then it starts reading letters of the alphabet, and then words, and slowly phrases, and then the baby can also read sentences. That is how child learns to read, and then ultimately the child learns to even write. So the sequence is very important, and we need to have an integrated approach with all the skills being focused equally. And when we talk about listening and reading, when we divide these skills vertically, listening and reading become receptive skills. So, receptive skills, when we receive language, like you are listening to me, or if you read a book, you receive language. Whereas speaking and writing, on the other hand, are productive skills because you produce language. If you start speaking, you will produce language. If you start writing, you will produce language. So these two, listening and reading skills, are called receptive skills, and speaking and writing are called productive skills. And if I ask you, I'm confident that you would say, if I ask you which skills are more challenging, receptive skills of listening and reading, or productive skills of speaking and writing? And the common answer would be the productive skills are more challenging, because listening, I can sit at ease and listen. But if I am asked to speak now at this juncture, I will have to take care of many things: my content, my body language, my pronunciation, tone, pace, and so many things, even grammar, even, my delivery aspect, and all these things come into picture. Same is the case with writing. If I read a book, I can read it at ease. But if I am asked to write a similar book, maybe on a similar topic, it becomes very challenging. But because we think that speaking and writing are more challenging, we spend more time developing or practicing only speaking and writing. That is the first mistake that we do, because the connect is not with vertical division but with horizontal division. So listening and speaking always go hand in hand. Same is the case with reading and writing. Reading and writing will always go hand in hand. So if you wish to become a good speaker, you must practice listening. You must listen as much as possible. And same is the case with writing. If you wish to become a good writer, you must read as much as possible. Let us now quickly talk about these four skills, one after the other. Listening, as I said, is a receptive skill because you receive language. And if you look at the structure of human body, human face, God has given us 2 ears, but only one mouth. Why not two mouths? I could have engaged with probably two people simultaneously, one mouth here, the other mouth from the back, and I could have talked to two people simultaneously. Or why not only one ear? Like when I use earphones or earbuds, even using one earphone, I can listen. But why 2 ears? So probably the input has to be effective for being able to produce effective output, or any other reason that you can think of. We need to distinguish or clearly understand the difference between hearing and listening. They are not the same. Hearing is just our physical ability that we can listen to any sound that comes to our ears, but that is just our physical ability, whereas listening is more than just a physical ability. It is physiological, it is mental ability as well, because not only when we listen, not only our ears as organs are involved, our mind is equally involved when we listen, which might not happen in case of hearing. And therefore, as good communicators, if you wish to become a good communicator, you should not only have the ability to hear or develop listening as a skill, but you must be an active listener. So let me see how many of you are active listeners. What you're going to do, of course, I cannot see you all, but I hope that you would be honest and you will perform what I'm going to ask you to do. So you are going to put your hands on different parts of your body according to the instructions that I give you. Ready? So put your hands on your head, put your hands on your shoulders, put your hands on your nose, put your hands on your forehead, put your hands on your cheeks, put your hands on your ears, put your hands on your nose. I said put your hands on your nose, but I deliberately put my hands on my shoulders. And if you are listening to me and not looking at my picture through the camera, you would probably have performed a correct action. But if you simply tried imitating my actions, you might have put your hands on shoulders, although I wanted you to put your hands on your nose. So this is what happens in the process of listening. Initially, we listen very carefully, but as time passes, we might not pay equal attention with our ears. Sometimes we listen with our eyes as well. So listening with eyes is also possible, right? Like reading through the fingers is possible. We can also read through the fingers or write, and that is how it is possible. They're all interconnected. And therefore, you need to be an active listener. Let me check whether you are really an active listener or not by asking you a question, and you can write your answers in the chat box. So be ready, open your ears, please lend them to me. One day I was going to a market and I saw Mr. and Mrs. Saxena. Saxena is a name, Mr. and Mrs. Saxena, with their two children. And along with those two children, there were two cats and two dogs. So, how many animals and human beings together were going to the market? Please think about the answer and type it in the chat box. Mhm. Yeah, let me see if there is any reply. How many people you can total and tell me the answer. Now, most of you, I'm sure, would say that the total number would be 8, but you will be surprised to know that not 8 or 7 or 6, the correct answer is 1. Why? Let me repeat my question. I said one day I was going to the market. Imagine the market is there in front of me. And I said, one day I was going to the market and I saw Mr. and Mrs. Saxena coming. They were coming from the market. And then along with those two people, there were two kids or two children. And along with those two children, there were two cats and two dogs. My question was, how many animals and human beings were going to the market? There were no animals with me, only I was going to the market. So the correct answer is one. And therefore listening is very crucial. We take listening for granted, but we need to develop that, and therefore this is very important. Another questions that I'd like to ask you: so what do you put in a toaster? And if you said toast, you are wrong. We put bread in a toaster. Now please say the word silk with me 5 times. Silk, 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 silk. Now please spell the word silk with me. S-I-L-K, silk. What do cows drink? Did you say milk? If yes, again, you need to be an active listener. I deliberately used the word silk, and the answer that you gave was milk, but cows don't drink milk. Cows drink water. Therefore, listening is very essential, and we need to pay more attention on building this foundation in communication. The most important thing in communication sometimes is to hear or to listen even what is not being said. Like in case of reading, we say reading between the lines. Similarly, as listeners, sometimes we have to listen between two dialogues. Another problem in communication is we usually don't listen to understand what the other person is saying. We usually listen to reply, to respond, and therefore there are many problems. Nowadays, people don't want to listen to others, they just want others to listen to them. And if you look at the word listen, Listen, if you really wish to be a good listener, look at the spelling of the word listen. And if you change the sequence of the letters, you also can form another word using the same letters, and that word is silent. So Listen, listen, and the word silent, Silent, both of them contain same number of letters and exactly the same letters. So the word silent. So the secret behind being a good listener is to be a silent person. Of course, when we talk about speaking, there are different aspects, but nowadays people don't listen at all. Like one person had to travel from one place to another through an airline, and he calls the airlines and asks, how long does it take to fly to B place from A place? The other person who answers the call says, just a second. And this gentleman hangs up the call by saying, just a second, okay, thank you very much. And he hangs up the call. So people don't have even time to think what the other person is saying. Now the other person says just a second, probably because the person is checking the details of the duration of the flight. But this gentleman doesn't have time to listen to what the other person is saying. This is how we are occupied completely, and we are living at a very fast pace life, and people don't therefore have time to listen. And if we are not good listeners, we cannot be good speakers, we cannot manage our work, we cannot manage our time effectively and judiciously. Now people have this dilemma: listening is a challenge, and we spend over 40% of our time listening. And if you are not a good listener, you cannot become an effective speaker or an effective communicator. We need to also know that we speak at the rate of around 150 words per minute. But remember, you can listen much more than that. That is around 1000 words per minute we can listen. And therefore, listening, if that is accompanied by other skills, we can retain that information for a longer period of time. So how do I improve my listening skills? First of all, we need to take care of distractions. We need to eliminate them. We need to concentrate. And for that, we need to have good attention span. We must focus on what the speaker is trying to say and have an open mind. Be an open to learning new things. You can always look for body language of the speaker to understand the message more effectively. We need not react to emotive words. Instead of reaction, we should respond, because reaction is prompt, response is a thoughtful reply. We can ask questions. If we do not understand anything, we can raise questions. We can also sit at a place where we can comfortably see and listen to the speaker. We should never carry any prejudice against anyone as a speaker. We should not have any bias against him or her. The best thing could also be to take notes, because when we take notes and when we again make notes, information consumption is more effective, and we can also keep a record of that. You can also ask for clarification, and that is how you can become an effective listener. Some additional tips: we can always paraphrase the message to the speaker to confirm whether we have understood it correctly or not. This can happen especially when we are into one-on-one communication. We can also repeat the message to help us remember what is being said or what was said. We can probe for missing information. We can always clarify our points which we might not completely comprehend or understand, and remember the important points of the message for future application. Second skill that we need to be good at if you want to become an effective communicator is the skill of speaking. And this is a productive skill, as we discussed some time ago. So one produces language when he or she speaks. But the common problem with most of us is fear of speaking, glossophobia. And this fear of speaking is very natural, very common. There was a survey conducted. The question was, what do you fear for? And there were many options: fear of height, fear of wild animals, fear of water, fear of death, fear of speaking was one of the options. And you will be surprised to know that only 20% of people selected the option of fear of death, and around 40 to 50% of people selected the option of fear of speaking. So it is very natural that we have this fear of speaking, especially when you don't know your audience. Like, I was also a bit anxious today before this session. How would my audience be? But I'm very happy to see that you are very active as listeners, and I can see your responses in the chat box. So I'm very happy, and that really motivates you as a speaker, because not only listeners need motivation, even the speaker needs motivation. And that is a give and take that we can have. And therefore, one has to overcome this fear of speaking. And that can happen with adequate practice. As we go ahead, I will also share some secrets that one can follow to be able to become a confident speaker. Whenever we speak, whenever I open my mouth, or whenever I deliver any address or any speech, a good speech should be like a pencil. It must have a point. If I speak pointless, my audience will lose interest. And therefore, we have to ensure that as a speaker, I finish speaking everything before my listeners stop listening. And therefore, this is really very important, and one has to develop this. Now remember, whenever we speak, we use this tongue to produce sounds or words and sentences. This tongue has no bones in it. but it is so strong that it can win or it can even break somebody's heart. And therefore we have to be very careful with the choice of words, with the choice of tone, pace, intonation that we use whenever we speak. And when we talk about this fear of speaking, it can have two possible full forms or interpretations. The first one, the simple meaning of the four letter word FEAR, could be forget everything and run. You have an opportunity to speak, but you think I must forget about it and run away from it. That is the easiest choice, but is not going to help you as a speaker. The optimistic meaning would be face everything and rise. That is how I'm going to progress. That is how I'm going to overcome this fear. And therefore, the choice is yours whether you take the first meaning of the four letter word fear or the second meaning. Thank you very much for all your encouraging comments in the chat box. And I really feel honored and blessed to have your such encouraging feedback. Now look at this statement. This is an actual statement. And can you interpret this? If someone has said this, I know that you believe, you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. So if we speak or use such complex statements in communication, there will be more gaps created. And therefore, how do you develop your speaking skill, the art of speaking? I have divided speaking into some sub skills of speaking, which you will not find in any book or anywhere. This is out of my experience that I have been able to jot down these 10 P's that you need to be good at if you wish to become a good speaker. Number one is you must know the purpose. What is the expected outcome whenever you open your mouth and you want to speak? What do you want in return? Any action, any reaction, any response, or what do you want? What is the output? If you know that output, it becomes easy. If I know my destination before I travel, I can plan my journey. So purpose, the purpose sometimes could be to inform, it could be to persuade somebody. If I'm in marketing, for example, the purpose when I speak would be to persuade somebody, to convince somebody to buy my product. It could be to entertain, or the purpose might differ from one lecture or one person to another. Then I must work on three important P's. That is, I must plan, I must prepare, and I must practice. So if I have to deliver a talk, for example, I must plan. So what is the area that I'm going to talk on? Then I need to narrow it down to a specific topic. I need to then carry out some research and then decide what medium I'm going to use to communicate my content, and rehearse, that is practice. Practice makes not only man but even woman perfect as far as speaking is concerned. So we need practice as well. And then we go to the next P, that is presentation. Now remember, purpose, planning, preparation, practice can be the same for everyone, but God has blessed us with the ability to think creatively. So even if we are going to speak on the same topic, each one of us will not express our ideas in the same manner. That is how we can use language creatively. So you might have heard similar talks on similar topic earlier, communication skills. But I'm sure that you would agree that maybe my style, my approach of looking at the topic and my delivery through this presentation might not be the same that you might have heard before. And therefore, that is the beauty that we are blessed with, that I can use language the way I want it, as creatively as I wish to. And therefore, the third important P, presentation, is different from one person to another. Everyone presents the same content in a different way. And let me share a small story here with you. In India, Akbar and Birbal's stories are quite famous. Birbal was a very brilliant man and he was like an advisor to the king Akbar. So, what happened? One day, King Akbar saw a dream. One night, he saw a dream in which he saw that he lost all his teeth except one tooth. Only one tooth was remaining. So he started wondering as to what does it mean, because people during that time used to believe in dreams a lot. So he was very anxious. The next day early in the morning he called all the astrologers from the town and he told them that I saw a dream last night in which I saw that I lost all my teeth but only one tooth was remaining. So what does it mean? So they all come together, discuss, ponder over it, and one of them, as a representative, goes to the king and tells him that this simply means that one tooth that is remaining represents you, and all other teeth which fell down are your family members, relatives, and friends. So the king said, so what does it mean? What can I predict from this? And then the astrologer says, this simply means that all your family members, relatives, and friends will die first, and then you will die. And when they are talking about the death of the king, the death of the king's family members, relatives, and friends, the king gets very upset. While this was happening, Birbal, the advisor of the king, was passing by. Birbal didn't know what happened. When Birbal was called, the king told Birbal the same thing, that I saw a dream last night in which I saw that I lost all my teeth except one tooth. So, what does it mean? Birbal thinks for a while, and Birbal knew how to be a good presenter. So Birbal thinks for a while and he says that yes, one tooth that was remaining is you, and all other teeth which fell down are your family members, relatives, and friends. So the king asked him, so what does it mean? Then Birbal says, this means among all your family members, relatives, and friends, you are going to live longer. May long live my majesty. This is how I pray for you. So this is how Birbal presents. The astrologer says that all your family members, relatives, and friends will die first, then you will die. So all negative presentation. Whereas Birbal communicated the same meaning but in a very optimistic and positive way. He said you are going to live longer compared to everyone else, be it your family member, relative, or friend, and may long live my majesty. You are the king and our kingdom will flourish with your long life. This is what I mean by individual style of presentation. Then of course, next P is posture. I can go into details of each of these sub skills, but considering respecting time limit, let us quickly move to the next P, that is posture, that is your body language. What is your appearance? Whether you dress formally, informally, how do you carry yourself? That is very important. How do you stand? Does it project confidence? Whether your body language is positive or negative? If I point fingers at people, for example, this is negative. I must use my hand. If I want to request, I must say, would you please come and sit here, rather than would you please come and sit here. So we should not point fingers. So body language, again, it might differ from one culture to another, one country to another. And whenever we deal with speakers or people from other countries, other cultures, we need to keep those differences in mind. For example, what does this mean for you? In India, this means well done, all the best, but in some countries, it has got different implications, meanings, interpretation. For example, in Japan, this means five. In Germany, this means one. And in some countries, this expression should not be used. It's a banned expression. If you do this, people might come and beat you. So this is how, as communicator, I need to be aware of such cross-cultural parameters of communication, especially through non-verbal communication. Then your pronunciation. We must be good at pronunciation. So if I am not good at pronunciation, there can be miscommunication, and therefore one has to take care of this, and we all will naturally have influence of our mother tongue, what we normally call MTI, mother tongue interference. But that is just a deviation from the standard variety of English or any other language for that matter that we wish to speak. So overcoming these problems and ensuring that we pronounce words correctly will help us even become a better communicator. So voice and accent is what we need to take care of. And then of course, the speed at which we speak, that is the next P, pace and pauses. What is the speed? If I speak as fast as I'm speaking now, you might not follow what I'm saying. But if I put myself into the shoes of my listeners, I will go slowly because I know it's an online session. I cannot go very fast. So what is my speed of delivery? And sometimes using effective pauses can also become very effective. Followed by next P, that is persuasion and politeness. We must sound convincing, and I should be courteous towards my listeners. I should be polite. And between the speaker and the listener, there are certain principles that we need to follow. Number one, principle of cooperation. When I am speaking, my listener must be silent. When my listener starts speaking, I must remain silent. This is how we cooperate with each other. And then there are different maxims. So principle of cooperation, then we have different maxims, the amount of information, and there are many details that maybe you can get connected with me and I can share them separately. Then next P is passion. If you are interested about the topic that you are going to speak on, if you are enthusiastic, you will naturally deliver an effective speech. And therefore, whatever you speak, it should be motivating, it should be also entertaining for your audience. Then you can also establish a personal touch, especially when it is a face-to-face communication. You can, rather than just showing sympathy, you must show some empathy. For example, there was a blind boy sitting on a street asking for help from the passerbys, and there was a board kept next to him, and it was written on the board in a dark font, in bold font, I am blind, please help. So every passerby would pass, by from that pavement or street where this blind boy was sitting. Very few people used to help him. Very few people would drop some coins. One of the participants from our group, after attending this session, was passing by from the same street, and he looked at the blind boy and the board kept next to the boy, which said, I am blind, please help. So this gentleman goes there and changes the text on the board. He writes something else and goes away, and suddenly the blind boy starts receiving more help from the passerbys. More people start giving money. After a couple of hours, this gentleman goes there out of curiosity to see how the blind boy was doing. And when he goes there, the blind boy can recognize his sound of footsteps. And then he asks, are you the same person who came some time ago and wrote something else on the board? What did you write? Now people have started even talking to me and they are giving me more money now. What did you write? Please tell me. And then this gentleman tells that I wrote the same thing that was already written, but I wrote it in a different way. Previous sign said, I am blind, please help. Now, what this gentleman had written was this: today is a beautiful day, but I cannot see it. And that really evoked not only sympathy but empathy among every passerby. And therefore, people started helping the boy, talking to him more. This is the power of language. And if you try to have this personal touch and empathy, people will have more bonding with each other. And of course, as a speaker, you also need to have a good presence of mind. You must be able to answer questions, for example. Many people say that I can deliver my talk so confidently, but I cannot answer questions confidently. So one has to remember that you may not know everything on the topic. I'm talking about communication skills, but I might learn something new from my audience, right? So I have to be open to learning new ideas. So I may not know everything on the topic. So if I don't know any question that you might ask me, and if I don't know the answer, I should honestly admit it. Or sometimes you can redirect that question to your audience. You can say, wow, that's a very pertinent question. And I see that XYZ, for example, here I can see, you know, Mr. Nasir. So I will say, Mr. Nasir, what do you think about this? And maybe the audience, somebody from the audience can also answer. So rather than giving false answer, if I have a good presence of mind, I can deal with question and answers also very effectively. Then as part of speaking, one has to take care of body language as well. So when we deal with people, we need to take care of each of these letters. P for postures and gestures, E for eye contact, O for orientation, P for proximity, L for looks, that is our appearance, and E for expressions of emotions. This is how we can show this through our body language. Now, there could be, as I said, positive body language or even negative body language. So, if I put my thumbs in my pocket, it is negative. I might not look very formal. It is like I am the in charge here, I am a dominant person. So how do you stand the distance between 2 feet, and where do you keep your hands? Now that is a question many people ask me, what should I do with my 2 hands? I cannot remove them and keep them away when I want to speak. So use your hands to engage the attention of the audience, but use positive body language. Don't point fingers, use your complete hand. Sometimes you can rest them, but not continuously. Sometimes again folding your hands like this is again negative. So use them. And if you are sitting, lean forward, and that is how you can speak, that is how you can communicate. So leaning back and sitting like this again is negative. Leaning forward shows that you are interested in what the speaker is trying to say, and therefore your body language communicates many things. How you use your fingers, if you fold them, if you keep them like this, every such expression has got some implied meaning attached to it. How do you stand, for example? The two images that you see in the two left and right corners are negative. The one in the middle is positive. So this is how you can stand and deliver a talk. You also need to read your audience. Look at their body language, look at their faces. If you are a teacher, please remember, teaching is like a performing art, and depending on the body language of our audience, we can always change some content, we can add, we can eliminate some content depending on how our audience reacts. So whether our audience, the members in the audience, are they bored or are they thinking, that we need to predict. Sometimes you might even receive some warning signs, people looking at their wristwatches again and again, or maybe yawning, or getting little anxious, coming up with different expressions. So these become warning signs, and accordingly you must either change, bring some fun element, crack a joke, or share an example or a story or an anecdote, but bring some change, otherwise they might lose interest. So that is why I talked about these 10 P's that one has to develop. Then you need to take care of your tone, stress, accent, because in English, even within a word, we have stress. Unlike many other languages, like in Indian languages, we don't use these stress patterns. Look at the word photograph. So the stress is on the first syllable, therefore, pho will be stressed more compared to the remaining syllables or remaining letters. When the form changes, the stress also moves. Photographer and photographic. So this is how the stress also changes, that you need to know. When we communicate, we either use a falling tone or a rising tone. So when do we use a falling tone? Especially when we make any statements, when we reply, or in case of exclamatory sentences, or when there is any order or command or warning or announcement, and especially all WH questions, we must bring our voice down, especially towards the end of the word. For example, what's your name? Where are you from? What are you doing? So the last word I bring my voice down, or even polite interest. Let me give you some examples. Who are you? I'm a student. Good morning. Hello. How beautiful this place is. Beware of the dog. The train is delayed by 40 minutes. Yes. No. So for all these examples, we use a falling tone. But we also use a rising tone, especially when there are yes no type questions, or when we make request, or when there is some hesitation in speech, or when we are not sure about certain statements, or before punctuation marks, or when there is concern interest. Let me give you some examples. Do you have a pen? So the last word I will raise my voice. Do you have a pen? Can you drive? Will you do me a favor? So the last word, pen, drive, favor, I raise my voice a bit. Is this the bag you were talking about? Are you at college? Is the movie interesting? Like there is a question here by the organizer. Did the webinar improve your career knowledge? So the last word, the voice will be raised when we pronounce or when we utter such sentences. So 7% of what we communicate is based on the choice of words. 38% of what we communicate is based on our voice inflections, this rising, falling tone, intonation. But 55% of what we communicate is based on our non-verbal communication, that is body language, and therefore we need to take care of body language. Let me now in another uh, 10 minutes or so quickly talk about the two remaining skills, reading and writing. Now we read on day to day basis, but there are some secrets that we need to be aware of. And it is said that today a reader, tomorrow a leader. If you are a good reader today, you can naturally become a good leader tomorrow, because you will have so much information, knowledge to share with the world and spread wisdom. So we read so many things every day, like I have listed out some things that we read every day, whether it is calendars, addresses, messages, rules and regulations, signages, greeting cards, television guide, advertisements, posters, film subtitles, diagrams, street signs, flow charts, name tags, and the list goes on. So we read so many things in day to day basis, but the question is, do we read all these things in the same way? The answer is, of course, no. It depends on the purpose. So please remember, reading varies enormously, and reading is something that we do all the time, not just for pleasure or study or work, but as a very crucial and vital part of our everyday life. How do other people make us read certain things? Look at how media can also help us read certain things or interpret certain things in a different way. So this is how sometimes people might partially only share things, and we might read or interpret them differently. Now please try reading what you see on the screen. And if you didn't notice that article the is repeated, then you probably read at a surface level. It is a bird in the bush. Article the is repeated. What do you see here? Good. If you focus on the black part of the text, you can see the word good. But if you focus on the white part inside every letter, you see EVLI, evil. So there are two words that you can get from this. Similarly, not only me, but you can also see you. This is how sometimes whatever we read, there could be two possible meanings attached to them. Look at this, for example. You don't have to read the words like yellow, blue, orange, but say the color of the word. For example, green, red, blue, yellow, and you can go on and on. And you will find that there is a conflict between your left and right brain, and you tend to read what you see than saying the color of the word. So this is what happens. Again, if I ask you, what do you see? Some of you might say, I see a duck. Some of you might say, no, I see a rabbit. Both of you are right. It depends on which direction, left or right, you are looking at. Which line in this diagram is longer, AB or BC? The natural answer would be BC, but both of them are of the same length. Only the rest of the diagram makes the line BC look longer. Can you read this? Only smart people can read this. Couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order of letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without a problem. I'm sure you can also read the way I'm able to read this. Only the first and the last letters are in correct place. The rest of them are jumbled, scrambled, and still you can make, because we don't read each and every letter. We don't read the word completely one after the other letter, but one word as a whole. And that is how we can comprehend meaning. And not only words, but even when we look at certain things, for example, pictures, even pictures can be ambiguous. There can be more than one possible meaning. For example, look at this picture. If I ask you, where are these people? Some of you might say they are at a seashore. Some of you might say they are flying kites. Some of you might say there are boats. Some of you might say they are dancing. So the answer may vary from one person to another. Can you count the letter F? How many times does the letter F appear in the four lines? And I'm sure the answer, common answer would be 3. But the correct answer is 6. And I'm not joking, because you did not count the preposition of, which contains F letter in it. So you counted only the remaining 3, and therefore we don't process every word, especially grammatical words, when we read. So reading is very essential, and a good book can change anyone's life, and therefore reading is very essential. Look at this passage, read it for a minute, for 30 seconds or so. Then I'll ask you some questions based on this passage. Let me read it for you. After examining the position, Ram is a name, Ram put the newspaper down. He knew that there was an important vacant place to be filled, that an application should be made. He felt qualified to fill it. Ram realized that he needed to climb at this stage and that the ceiling for the job was high. No doubt about it, he would have to reach out. Eventually, he reached the heights he had hoped for. His application was good and he served to be doing well at work. But for some reasons, he eventually fell down on the job. He had overreached himself and he suddenly found that he could not support himself. In the end, Ram was hurt by the experience. He wondered whether the job he wanted so well had been worth the effort. So, if I ask you some questions, for example, who is the person in the story? Ram. Is Ram employed or an unemployed person? I'm sure you would say unemployed person. How does he come to know about the opening of the job? By reading the newspaper advertisement. Does Ram apply for the job? Yes. Does Ram get selected? Yes. But after selection, is Ram able to cope with the situation? Yes or no? No. Does Ram get a good or a bad experience? Bad experience. Does Ram also get hurt by this experience? Yes, he does get hurt by this experience. So this is the meaning, but there is some additional meaning attached to that passage. Ram is not at all looking for a job. He is none other than a painter who paints walls, for example. So he finds that in one of the buildings where he had taken a contract of painting, some part of the ceiling was not properly painted. So this is how the story begins. He examines the position, the ceiling carefully, and because now he is going to paint, he puts newspaper down on the floor because the floor should not get dirty. He knew that there was an important vacant place to be filled and an application should be made. Color had to be applied. He felt qualified. He thought that yes, I could paint this, but he realized that he needed to climb because the ceiling for the job was very high. No doubt about it, he would have to reach out up to that place. So maybe he brought a ladder or a table or a chair. He reached the heights he had hoped for, his application was good, and he served to be doing well at work. He was painting it very effectively. But what happened? For some reasons, he fell down. Why? Because he had overreached. He could not reach that, but he was trying to stretch his body and reach and paint. As a result, he could not support himself. He fell, and because he fell down, he got his hand injured. He was probably hurt by that experience, and therefore he wondered whether the job he wanted so well had been worth the effort. So I'm sure you would also agree with this second meaning from the same passage. This is how writing could be sometimes ambiguous, and a good reader will always look at it and try to get the correct meaning or interpretation. The last skill is writing, and as part of writing, we are required to draft, write, proofread, edit, write the first, second, third draft, and revise it every time. Like speaking, we can always improvise our writing. The advantage in case of writing is we have adequate time to think, to plan, and then to reflect. Unlike speaking, where you have to be impromptu, you have to be prompt. You also do paraphrasing, summarizing. We are required to write letters, emails, reports, and the list goes on. Now, how do people write? There was an advertisement for a washing machine that I came across, and the advertisement had this slogan: "Don't kill your wife. Let our washing machine do the dirty work." So this is quite ambiguous. The meaning is, ambiguous, and therefore you have to take care of this. In writing, like in speaking, I take care of my pauses. In writing, I have to take care of through punctuation. For example, let's say grandma. If I don't put a comma there, I don't use a pause, the meaning will change. If I put a comma, the meaning will change. Let's say grandma, so I'm calling my grandma. Look at another sentence. The sentence is same words, only the punctuation is different. The first comma is in the second same place, but the second comma, one is after the word her, and the other one is in the next sentence after the word man. So the first sentence, let us understand its meaning. A woman without her man is nothing. So who is important? Woman is important. But look at the second sentence. A woman without her man is nothing. Now, not woman, but man is important, because without her man, woman is nothing. The meaning also changes. Even a single word, when I place it at a different place, the meaning will also change along with the placing of the word at a different place. I hit him in the eye yesterday is the sentence. If I put the word only at different places, the meaning will also change. That is why in writing, we have to be very careful about the choice of words and even the placing of word. Where do I place that word? The meaning might change. Some more examples of ambiguity. Did you see the girl with the telescope? Whether the girl was carrying a telescope or the person used a telescope to see the girl, the meaning is not clear. The lady hit the man with an umbrella. Whether the lady used an umbrella to hit the man or the man was carrying an umbrella with him. He gave her cat food, and he gave her cat food. Cat as an adjective and cat as a noun will change the meaning. Stolen painting found by tree. Whether the tree itself went and found it or by tree means beside the tree. They are hunting dogs. Hunting as a verb and hunting as an adjective, the meaning will change. We can also write very innovatively, very creatively, like I gave you an example of the blind boy. Look at these examples. Forest department had this board: shoot the bird with camera, not with gun. Traffic department: donate blood, but not on roads. Petrol station, they had a board: no smoking. Your life may be worthless, but our petrol is costly. And hospital board, there was a board which said, if you still want to continue looking at girls even after your death, donate your eyes. So this is how language can also be used very creatively. But whenever we write, we have to keep the other side also in mind. How will my readers interpret what I'm going to write? Just because you are right doesn't mean the other person is wrong, and therefore we have to consider all these aspects. So whenever we communicate, whether it is listening or speaking or reading or writing for that matter, we must follow our heart but we must take our brain also with us. So with this, we come to the end of this session. I thank each one of you for your patient and active listening. Thank you very much for all the feedback that you have shared, the comments, the responses to every question that I asked during my talk. I am grateful to IGP team for this wonderful opportunity to share whatever little that I have studied on this very interesting topic, the art of communication. So I hope you had some takeaways from my session this evening. I look forward to answering questions if there are any. I once again thank for this wonderful opportunity and hand over the session back to our gracious host. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am, are you there? I'm done with my presentation. Okay, by the time she comes, if there are any questions, please feel free to share them in the chat box. I'll try my best to answer. But I'm very happy for all your comments and feedback. So any questions, if you have, please feel free to ask. So thank you. Thank you very much. Isaiah Kiangvi. Sorry if I mispronounce your names. Proper nouns have usually no logic, like you might find even pronouncing my name correctly. Thank you, Agnes Lamson Mello. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rachel Zoleto Castro. That question would be answered by the host. I think yes, you will receive certificates if you attend the quiz that follows after this session. Thank you, Kath. Thank you very much for joining from Philippines and being there throughout the session. Okay, I'm glad to know that I pronounced the word correctly. Thank you very much from all the Facebook live, participants. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity and thank
Thank
you
you
for.
so much, sir, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seeker surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seeker can learn something new, which was our only intention. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seeker. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for your presentation. Now, sir, it's time for the question answer session, which is the one more valuable part of our regular webinar. Honorable sir, please stay with us. After a short video, we will back in our session part 2, which is the question answer part. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Sir, I think after your wonderful presentation, our participant can understand the topic very clearly. That's why no questions from our participants. So once again, thank you so much, sir, for your time in IGP. We have learned a lot from you with new topic. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable sir, hope to see you again with a new topic and a new date. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you once again, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Honorable sir, before we move to the next webinar certification process, if you want to leave this studio, you can.
Sure. Thank you.
Dear IGP knowledge seeker, stand for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, stand for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Certification process. Visit www.eduigp.com. Please make sure your presence on our website. Find a learning session and get enrolled. After watching, complete part 1, click mark as complete. Move to the next, which is the learning test, passing mark 80%. If passed, back to the course again to download your certificate if failed to retake the course. Download your certificate in PDF or JPG. For your attention, I am going to share the procedure again. Visit www.eduigp.com. Please make sure you represent on our website. Find a running session and get enrolled. After watching completing part 1, click mark as complete. Move to the next, which is the learning test passing mark 80%. If passed, back to the course again to download your certificate if failed to retake the quiz. Download your certificate in PDF or GPT. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the most engaging part of this webinar, which is an online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. For some technical problem, we cannot continue the quiz session from our website. So to join the quiz session, you have to go www.slido.com, and today our quiz code is 5544238. I repeat the code again, 5544238. After a short video, we will start our quiz session. With dead people, we are going to start our quiz session right now. Our first question is, how might an anesthesia researcher use writing and communication skill in their work? Option 1, writing a grant proposal to apply for funding for their research. Option 2, scientists don't use writing or communication skill. Option 1 is the right answer. 96% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Jokalian is holding the first position. Our second question is, what are the effective communication skills used in MC3? Option 1, build, rapid, and listen with purpose. Option 2, effective delivery and people skill. Option 1 is the right answer, and 72% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Jokalian is holding the first position. Our third question is, one benefit of effective communication skill is. Option 1, self-promotion. Option 2, self-checks. Option 1 is the right answer. 75% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Jokalian is holding the first position. Our fourth question is, what is effective communication skill? Option 1, term goal that the leader understands. Option 2, term goals that are clearly understood by everyone. Option 2 is the right answer. 98% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Joselian is holding the first position. Our fifth question is having good communication skills. Option 1, health and well-being. Option 2, development. Option 2 is the right answer. 81% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Joselian is holding the first position. Our sixth question is having refined or expressive communication skill. Option 1, imminent. Option 2, equivalent. Option 2 is the right answer. 72% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Flami is holding the first position. Our seventh question is good communication skill reduce potential workplace. Option 1, harmony. Option 2, conflict. Option 2 is the right answer. 72% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Flami is holding the first position. Our eighth question is communication skill. Option 1, don't matter. Option 2 are the most important skill to learn. Option 2 is the right answer and 100% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Flami is holding the first position. Our second last question of the evening session is what are two effective communication skills? Option 1, enable and explore. Option 2, build rapport and listen with purpose. Option 2 is the right answer. 88% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Flami is holding the first position. Our last and final question is communication skill. Option 1 is speaking. Option 2, dancing. Option 1 is the right answer and 100% people are right here. So congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. At the end of our session, we can say properly feed your skill, never stop learning, cause life never stop teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. See you again and again. We want your participation in every program. If you want to live a happy life, try to a goal, not a people or things. Albert Einstein. Before I say or hit the like button, I want to thank all IGP knowledge seekers for your active participation as always. See you again in the next session. Thank you.